hope you can hear me. Okay, so today we'll do something not on the painting side, but something we all need as well, which is swatching out your watercolor paints. So normally, you can already swatch it out easily like this. That's fine. But if you want to go even deeper and really study how your paints work, how they behave, then stay tuned and I'll show you a more thorough way of swatching them out and creating your own swatch card, swatch template. And of course, this is just my example, so feel free to create your own if you want to add more, if you want to make it bigger or smaller. So this is an example of mine. So this is one card. So usually you can have it set like this, like one whole paper full of your swatches, and you can save this by colors, like for example all your blues, all your reds all together, so that if you're looking for a specific color in that range, then you can easily just get your paper swatch. Or you can also cut them up and then just leave a space on top, and then you can put them together, just put a ring around, and it can be like those color binders that designers usually have of their swatches. So you can do it either way. You can have it in a paper form, in a whole paper, or you can have them in little cards and just with a ring, putting them together. Or you can put them in a clear envelope, the one with the many clear pages, and you can have them all there, that you can easily access. So again, so many ways to personalize it and to be able to see your whole collection, not just the tubes or the pans themselves, but the pigments, your colors exactly, and how they behave on paper. Okay, because all our colors, they have different characteristics. Some of them will be more transparent, some more opaque, some are granulating, some not, some have a smoother flow. So all those different things, it's good to know and have on record. So if you need something in particular, then you can just go to your swatches. Okay, so I'll start from scratch so you can see how it is, but I already have the finished here. Okay, so I'm gonna flip my camera down so so you can see my desk. Okay, one moment. Okay, so here's my desk. Let me fix the lights. Okay, so I hope it's clear. All right, let me just switch this around so it's not flip side. Okay, there you go. So here I'm just going to introduce to you one of our new watercolor palettes. So if you've seen my other, me and Theodora's other videos, our other live videos, you will see us already using Zen Art's watercolor. Those are our starting or beginner watercolor, our aspiring series. These ones are our professional grade. So this is artist grade. So today I will be swatching this one, Vista. So we have Classico. So this is like as labeled. It's very easy to understand. These are the classic colors that you need. So they're all here. So you can if you want to start off with the basics, then this is the palette. So the Classico. It already comes with the swatch card. This is metal, and of course the mixing areas that you can use. Okay, so we have the Classico, we have the Moderno. This has the more modern colors. Really, the names, they're very easy to understand. As you can see, it has pink, it has purple. So really more modern, more contemporary colors. And then we also have the Sorriso. So this is for the those who like to paint skin tones, people, portraits. Okay, so this is perfect. It has a lot of the warm colors and browns, and the blues and greens that you also need for the midtones of when you're painting skin tones. Okay, and then lastly the Vista, which is, as you can see, the photo is for the views, for the landscape, seascapes, and such. So this is it. And this one I've already opened because I'm going to swatch them today. So it has a lot of the greens, blues, and the more deeper earthy yellows. All right. So the colors in this palette are Indian yellow, yellow ochre, cobalt violet hue, manganese blue hue, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, aqua green, aureole green, permanent green light, jade green, sepia, and indigo. So beautiful colors. And I didn't swatch this out so we can see this fully here later. Okay, so now using this palette, Vista, let's swatch out the colors. So since I removed this already, I'll just show you how it looks like when it's packed, and because this is important. So before you unpack your paints, make sure you don't throw away stuff that you still need for the details. So you can pop out the pans easily. So it comes wrapped in plastic, and then with this, like this. Okay, so this has all the details that this color has. So here it says Indian yellow, pigment PY150, and transparency T, lightfastness 2 dots. Okay, so when it says PY in the pigment, so pigments come in P, this, P, it just means pigment, and then the color. So PY is pigment yellow, 150, so that's the specific pigment. And then transparency T means it's quite transparent. And the lightfastness with 2 dots is, it means it's very good. So with 1 dot, it's excellent. 2 dots, very good. 3 dots, fair. Okay, so these details you would like to record on your very thorough swatch cards. Again, you can start with just the basics like this, and all our palettes already come with that, with this swatch card, so that it's something that you just pack when you're on the go. But if you want a more thorough testing of your paints, then I'll show you shortly. Okay, so I kept these because I want to be able to refer to it when I do my very thorough, in-depth swatching. Okay, so let's just pop this back in. Okay, and then set it aside. Okay, so for now I will start with my swatch card. So I've already done this ahead of time so that you can already see the finished. So in this paper I can fit 5, 10. Okay, so good enough. You can of course make them smaller, but I want a bigger size so that I can swatch it better, so I can actually see it better than just, you know, doing it on a very small space and making everything fit. Okay, so again, you can personalize this your own way. If you want to make things bigger, if you want to add more, then go ahead. So, but this is just to help you start out, and you can totally follow this if you like it. Okay, so here I measured 2 inches wide. So I'm just going to go and I'm going to leave a space between the two, so that if I do decide to cut them up into cards, small cards, I still have some space for the hole. Okay, so I'm going to leave 1 inch space in between. So let's measure that. So your ruler will really come in handy here, so you'll have an even swatch card. So you can do this and you can save it, and then you can just have them printed out in the future so that it'll be faster. But if you enjoy doing stuff like this, then go ahead. Okay, so again, I'll measure 2 inches wide for each, for 5. But I will leave a space, 1/4 inch space in between. So don't forget to leave space so that they're separated properly. And if you do need to cut it, then you will have room to move around. Okay, and then I'm going to repeat it down here so that I can be sure that I'm creating even squares. They're not, you know, suddenly going diagonal on me. So this would be a great thing to do while you're listening to music. You know, it can be quite therapeutic because this is quite repetitive. So if you get bored easily, then do it while, you know, listening to music or while you're watching a show that you like. Okay, so for now, I'm already gonna trace them together, create the spaces between. So just do the lines lightly, because later you will use your pen to mark the squares and the rectangles. So just light lines, just there to guide you, just visible enough. So this is HB. When I need to sketch lightly, I use HB. Or if you have a heavy hand, then go towards the F. The Fs have pencils with the F leads have much harder leads, so they don't leave dark marks. Even if you do want to, you press on your pencil, they won't leave dark marks. Okay, so I think I neglected one space here. Let me fix that. Okay, so stay with me. Okay, this is just so that you see how I do it. This is might be quite boring, but still it's good to know how to do it for yourself. Okay, so for this one I measured 3/4 inch so that I have enough space. This is where I will write the name of the color and the pigments used and the other properties like transparency, lightfastness, granulation, and staining. Okay, so who here loves granulating paints? I'm quite a fan of granulating paints. I actually sometimes it's quite scary because you don't know how they will come out. But since I love texture, I'm quite excited for the granulation. But not always. Sometimes you want a smooth flow, right? You don't want granulation. So that's why it's important to test out your paints so you know how they look like. Sometimes you might like how they look on the tube or the pan, and then you get a really weird surprise and, oh, it's very granulating or it's very opaque. So this is the objective of swatching out your colors so that you're not surprised while, you know, you've already used it on your painting and then you get really weird surprise. Okay, so for this one, 1/2 inch and then just a slight space in between. Okay, so let's do that. So 1/2 inch. So this top here is where you will write on the name, the pigments, things like that, pigment information. And here is where we will do the full swatch, full dark wash. So we try to make it as concentrated as we can. That's not going towards the gouache side. And then here is where we will do the graded wash with I will still mark this with a Sharpie here. This is where we test how the paint looks like when it goes from dark to light. At the same time, when it goes over the the Sharpie mark here, you will see how opaque it is. If it covers the mark, you know, very much, then it means it's quite on the opaque side. But if it doesn't really cover it so much, then it's more transparent. And then finally, here is where we will do our wet on wet. We will see how the paint spreads when you dab it on wet surface. So you see how far it travels, how it behaves when it travels on a wet surface. So really a very thorough testing of your paints. Okay, so let me know if it's too dark or not. I can adjust the settings here. I think it's quite a bit dark earlier. Okay, so again, So again, go back to 1/2 inch here and then a bit of space. So we'll do that. You of course want to see how it looks like when it's applied very thickly. Does it look okay, or does it work better as you know, a mid shade, things like that. So you test it out on so many levels, even the staining. So with the staining, we will apply later we will apply the paint here where we apply the thick wash, and then we will try to lift off the paint. So some paints you can lift off quite easily and they leave a really whiter mark, but some are very staining, and so you won't be able to lift it off very well. So let's I'll continue so that we can go to swatching. So I hope you don't mind, I'm showing you the entire process so that you can really do this on your own, like from scratch, and you can create your own as well if you want to make it even more detailed your own way, how you would like things to be. You might want a bigger graded wash area or not. Okay, so and then I'm going to measure 2 inches, 2 inches long. So remember, when you trace this over later with your pen, make sure that your pen is waterproof. Okay, because otherwise when it gets wet, it's going to bleed and mess up your swatching. So make sure that your paint is marked waterproof. Your ink, sorry, your pen's ink is waterproof. Or you can do your swatching with just, if it's not, you can do your swatching and just do the pen after when everything is done. Okay, and then just trace over the parts that you need to separate. So it's good to have them separate so that they don't bleed against each other. So I leave little spaces in between just so everything is neat and tidy. Because, you know, watercolor, you will get things wet, you will go over your lines, but if you have enough space, then at least they won't bleed as much again with each other. We're nearly there, folks, so stay with me. So again, I'm going to be swatching our new paints. Well, just one palette today, because it's going to be too much if I swatch all of them, which I'm going to be swatching the Vista. So these will be available soon, but for now, I'll show you how they look like, how they behave, so you can get like a peek. So we have other new stuff coming up. We also have watercolor pads, which I'll be showing also the next time. Okay, and for the last part, this is just 1/2 inch. So again, I'm just going to leave a small space just like here. So I don't really measure this so much because you can gauge it if it's just this slim. It's much harder when you're doing thicker measurements. Okay, so just 1/2 inch. So again, this is where I'll be testing the wet on wet and see how it behaves. Because some colors, some pigments, they travel quite, you know, fast, and they have beautiful spreading or blooms, and some are just they stain immediately and they don't move as much. Okay, so I'm done with the pencil. Like I mentioned, if you drew lightly, then you can still see it. Okay, then just go over it with the pen, or if your pen is not waterproof, go over it after you've done all the swatching. So in my case, it's waterproof, so I'm just going to do it ahead so everything is marked clearly. Okay, so try to stay within the boxes and don't draw over the lines in between that are supposed to be spaces. I tend to do that. I know they're just there for previous marking, but I tend to just do a straight line and then I have to erase after, or put a white ink over just to correct. So just to keep everything clean. Okay, so these are the parts where you skip over those parts in the middle that you're supposed to, that I didn't here on top. Okay, so here, make sure to skip those parts. Okay, even if there's a pencil mark, you want them to be separate. So as you can see here, I made a mistake and I just covered it with white ink. But learn from my mistake and make sure to skip those parts. Okay, and I'm just gonna get this over with so that I don't forget about them. Sometimes when you're in the groove and you just keep drawing, you forget things that you should keep in mind. So when you guys paint, do you paint without sound, with music, or do you prefer silence? I like to choose what they call, sometimes I'm in the mood for just work music. That's what I search for in Spotify anyway. It says work music, so it doesn't really have lyrics. It's just instrumentals. Okay, almost there. And then I'll go through everything before we do the painting, like the lightfastness. So what are your most used colors? Have you ever looked at your palette and just know that you keep refilling or you keep buying one color in particular? Do you have any of those like really favorite colors? In my case, I seem to like my yellows a lot, so I use them really quickly. Hansa yellow, cadmium yellow. Okay, so you need your ruler for this. Well, you can wing it, I guess, if you don't mind not having straight lines and even measurements. But if you're gonna put them together in a collection, then it's just good to have it all in even sizes. So it's like a catalog of all your colors. In my case, I think I would actually prefer to have it in pages rather than cutting them up in small bits. That way I can see the colors against each other and I can easily compare and choose which colors I would prefer to use for a particular painting. So how are you, everyone? How's how's the new year treating you? It's just the start, but I hope this year will be kinder in all of us, and I hope you'll be productive art-wise. Any art resolutions you have in mind? Or art goals? Doesn't have to be resolutions per se. Me, maybe besides painting loosely, perhaps painting animals, painting more animals. I just realized I don't really paint a lot of animals, so I think that might be a good challenge for me, especially the furry kind. I think that could be quite challenging. I've only done dogs or cats a few times. I tend to draw people more. So what do you guys like to paint? And what are you going to challenge yourself to paint this year? Okay, and finally we're almost there. Okay, thanks for staying. All right, so with your professional grade paints or artist grade paints, they should have all the information already when you buy them, either in a separate paper or like this. When it was wrapped with each color is wrapped separately, and it contains all the information. So for this first one, this is let me just make sure. This is Indian yellow. So Indian yellow is a really, really nice warm yellow, more on the orange side. Okay, so Indian yellow. Okay, so I'm gonna write here. Again, you can write with pencil first, so that if you make mistakes, then you can always still change it up later. So I'm gonna write Indian yellow. And then you can write a dash for the brand of the paint, so that you can also tell which brand it is if you need to replace it or need to buy, you know, new paints, new colors. So this is Zen Art Supply, so I'm just going to put ZS. Okay, so just the abbreviation of the just the first letters of the brands. And then I'm going to write the pigment. So the pigment here is PY 150. And then I'm going to write the transparency. So here it says transparent, so T. And then I'm going to put the dash for the lightfastness. So it has 2 dots. So you can do 2 dots, or, you know, the 2 eyes with the dots on top. Okay, and then when you test it, you can put your, okay, so this is how it looks like. So Indian yellow, and then the brand name, so Indian yellow, ZS, Zen Art Supplies, and then pigment, PY 150, pigment yellow 150, and then here the T, transparency, and then I just put a dash, and then 2 dots with the 2 eyes for the light fastness, so it means very good. And then here I left it a blank because I don't know yet, because I will swatch it and then judge after. So this first blank here is for the granulation. If it's granulating, then I will just say yes with a Y. If not, and then I'll just put N for no. And then here the same Y for yes and for no for staining. So once I find out after I swatch, then I can fill this in. But these ones, all these other information, they're already here in this packaging that was wrapped around the pan. So here is what it looks like closer. I hope you can see it. So that's why I didn't throw it away yet, because it has all the information right here. So your artist grade or professional grade paints, they would have this information. If it's in tubes, then the tube should have that too. Okay, so you can already find out the information there, and you can search it if not. All right, so let's test our first color. I'm just going to use a round brush and then a flat brush, so I can for lifting, or maybe an angle brush, maybe it's better for lifting. Okay, and then yeah, okay, that's it. I can just get more brushes later. Okay, so let's see. Have your water ready, and also your paper towel or your absorbent cloth. All right, so again, for the first section here, this is just a full wash, a really dark wash, so that you can judge your. Okay, I'm just gonna pop this out so I can have it closer. Okay, so this is also the nice things about pans like this, that you can pop them out. So it doesn't move around too much. Okay, so I'm just gonna do it wet and dry here. I think I can zoom in so you can see closer. Okay, one moment. Okay, there you go. All right. So I need more water. It's too dry. So I'm just really applying a full thick wash. Doesn't have to be so thick, but you know, thick enough that you see the full coverage of the color. So just a thick flat wash. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So that's Indian yellow, just, you know, in one shade. Okay. So before I move on, okay, before I forget, I'm just gonna apply for everything already. Remember I mentioned before I would create a line here from the marker. I'm using Sharpie. So this is permanent, so it won't muddy later when it gets wet. Okay, so I'm just gonna mark this here with a line. Again, this is for testing the so you can see how transparent or how opaque the pigment is. I'm doing it for everything. Because you can easily see over black the coverage. Although it says already here in your information, it's still good to see how it looks like. Okay, so let's just give it time to dry. Okay, so again, we're still with a yellow, with Indian yellow. Okay, so here we're gonna do a graded wash. Okay, so I'm just gonna do it wet and dry. You can do wet and wet, it's up to you, but I'm gonna do wet on dry for mine. Okay, add water. Okay, those are stray cats outside. If you hear howling sounds. Okay, and so this is the graded wash. Okay, I'll bring it closer. As you can see, it did really cover the black mark. So it's accurate. It says transparent. It is indeed transparent. Okay, cool. So next, here we have to wet this. So we wet it. Okay, so if you have the time or if you have more budget, then you can test this out in two kinds of paper. You know, this is just cold press 200 GSM paper. You can test it out in thicker paper, hot pressed, cold pressed. You can test it out in different kinds of paper so you can see how it looks like. And here I'm just gonna dab the pigment here and there and see how it spreads on the wet surface. Okay, so I'm leaving room so that I can see even the tiniest spread that it makes. Okay, so I'm gonna bring it closer again so you can see. There you go. Okay, so this is your full wash, your just one value dark wash, and then your graded wash over this marker to test to see the transparency. And here is on wet on wet to see how the pigment moves on a wet surface. Okay, so these are the different ways that you can see and you can check how your color behaves. So this one is pretty dry, so I can now try to lift paint and see if it's very staining or just more forgiving for color lifting. Okay, so with a damp brush, you can see it better with a flat brush because you can really take off paint cleanly. Okay, so since we're testing here, I'm just going to do it here below. Okay, and then wipe. So you can just dip your brush again, just damp, not wet, and then lift off paint. So how much paint you can lift off and, you know, leave a cleaner paper under, it means it's not very staining, especially if you can lift it off until it's like nearly white. And here you can see it's not extremely staining because you can still lift off quite a clean line. Okay, so let's move on to our next color. Okay, so I'll pop this back in and then get the next color. So the next color is yellow ochre. So you can also do this per palette. So for example, for this palette, I will create this one. So this is for this Vista palette in particular. So I'll keep it as one page. So you can do this by palette, and you can also do this by doing for all your colors. Okay, so the next one is yellow ochre. So here, yellow ochre, pigment PY42. Okay, so again, I'm gonna write it down with pencil first so that I can still make corrections if I make a mistake. Yellow ochre. And then again, the brand, it's the same, ZS, Standard Supplies. And then pigment, PY42. And then transparency, it says opaque. So I will put O. And then dash, and then lightfastness, 3. And then dash. Again, I will put the granulation information and then the staining. So this one I already know. So granulating, no. And then staining, no. Okay, so it's up to you. It's up to your own thinking if you feel like it's staining or not. It's very personal. Okay, but you can really compare later when you've swatched all, and you can see which ones are really staining. So you can leave this off for later if you're not yet sure, and swatch everything. Okay, so next, yellow ochre. Okay, let's put this here. So just wash your brush in between colors so that they don't affect. So let's create the one even wash with a very pigmented application. So for this, I'm just doing wet and dry again, so that I can get a nice even wash. So already I can see that yellow ochre is more textured. Usually earthy colors are. Okay, and for this, again, I'm still wet and dry. I'm going to do a graded wash. You can also do this with wet and wet if you prefer that. Then I'll add water. So this is how I do my graded wash, easy peasy. I just keep adding water. All right, so here, before I do the wet on wet, as you can see, I dabbed it into 3 different parts, and it's already started to move to each other. So that's why it's good to leave white spaces in between so you can see how it travels. So here is the yellow ochre. You can see it already has like more texture compared to this. This one is very smooth. This one has more texture, and it also covers the mark. You can see it here. It's blacker. Here it's more gray. So the marker has been covered by the paint, and it says here in the information because it's opaque. So yellow ochre is more opaque, and this is the grid wash. And here I will do the wet and wet. Okay, so I'm just gonna do one row like this. Don't worry, I'm not gonna do all of them, just so you can see the general feel of how it goes. Okay, so again, just wet this section, wet it enough, like how you would do your wet and wet, that the paper is glossy. Okay, so just glossy, not pools of water. So with thinner paper, you don't have to put on so much. Okay, so again, I'll get pigment, and again, I'm gonna dab in different parts, just like that. Okay, so I prefer to do it like this. If you want to, if you prefer to do it in a streak, go ahead. See how that looks like. Okay, so for mine, I'm just gonna do it like here, like what I did earlier, because look how far this pigment has traveled. So you can really tell the difference between different pigments on how they behave when they travel on the wet surface. Okay, so I'm gonna leave everything for last, the marking of the granulating and staining. I'm just gonna swatch the other colors first. This one is still wet, so I need to wait for it to dry before I color lift, so I can really judge the staining properly. But you can color lift when painting. You can color lift when it's wet, when it's dry. It's much easier when it's wet, of course. But for this exercise where we're checking our colors, where we're studying how they behave, then it's best to do it when it's dry. Okay, so for the next one, this is cobalt violet hue. So cobalt violet hue, let me just look for it here from my paper that I removed. Okay, here it is, cobalt violet hue. Okay, so again, we'll write the name, cobalt violet hue. If you have any questions, just ask away. Okay, don't be shy. Okay, so this again, ZS for Zen Art Supplies. And then pigment. Okay, so this one has several pigments. So these two, they're just single pigments. This one, of course, will have at least two pigments because it's a secondary color. It's violet. So let's see, PV. Okay, pigment violet 23. And then PV pigment violet 19. And then PW pigment white 5. Okay, so just seeing that it has white, I know I already can guess that it might be on the opaque side. And it did, it here says transparency O. So transparency opaque. Okay, so O dash lightfastness 2. Okay, so I'll put 2 eyes and then dash blank dash. Okay, so let's swatch this violet. Okay, clean your brush. Okay, swatch. Again, I'm just doing wet and dry, make it dark so that you can really see the full intensity of the color. And we'll color lift on this side because we want to see how much we can remove with this dark application. Okay, so this is the full coverage. Now let's do the graded wash. Starting from a deeper, always starting from a deeper mix or shade and then going lighter. Okay, adding water. So you want to see your pigment go from light to dark so you can really see the full behavior. Okay, and then again here, wet and wet. Okay, first wet it. So if you're using a paper that's not too thick, don't get it overly wet. And again, dabs here and there. You can also test it with deeper dabs and lighter dabs so you can see how it looks like. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. Okay, so the next one is manganese blue hue. Manganese blue hue. Okay, let's get this out. Okay, and here it is, manganese blue hue. So write down your color. Manganese blue hue. And again, dash the brand, ZS. Then here it has two pigments. So the pigment is PB, pigment blue, 15, 3, and then PW, pigment white, 6. Okay, so this also has a little bit of white. So transparency is O, opaque. So whenever, as you can see, you can tell whenever you add white, it will affect the transparency. So it won't be as transparent as how it would be without the white. Okay, so, but these colors come in handy as well. You sometimes also want the opaqueness. So again, it's good to know your colors. So this is where your swatch cards come in. So you can see all the information that you need before you decide on using them on your painting. Or if you can't make up your mind, looking at your swatch cards can also help you figure things out, or might even give you ideas. Okay, and then again, graded wash. Just add water to thin it down. And then wet on wet. So when you get the hang of things, you'll be able to do this really, quickly. It's very therapeutic. And then you see how things behave. So it's like a bit of research into your paints. So even though all the information is there, actually testing it out yourself and seeing how they work is really great. Okay, and finally, for our last color, okay, we have the ultramarine blue. Okay, ultramarine blue. Okay, so let me put this back in first so that I don't mess up my paints. Ultramarine blue. Okay, so again, write the information. Okay, ultramarine blue, ZS. So if you have a lot of different brands, then this will really come in handy. Imagine loving a certain paint so much and then forgetting the brand. For example, maybe you've squeezed it all out. Maybe it's from a tube. Okay, pigment is PB29. So single pigment for this one. Transparency T, so it's quite transparent. Lightfastness, 3 dots, very good. And then, excellent. And then dash for the granulation, another dash for the staining. Okay, so ultramarine blue, ready? Okay, let's do the full coverage here. So I really want to make it darker so I can see how it looks like really deep. So do it really deeply, but not too deep that it has a glossy finish. Okay, you still want it to be like watercolor. Okay, then I'm gonna go and do the graded wash. And finally, for the wet and wet, again, just wet it all over. If your paper is thicker, then you might have to go over it twice, you know, because some papers really absorb quickly. Okay. Then just dabs again so I can see how they travel, how they look like. All right, and so we have our full row. Awesome. So I'll just bring it closer so you can see. Okay, so this is still quite wet, but this is dry, so I can already try to lift here. So I like to use my angle brush if I'm just gonna lift, a clean line. I'm gonna do it for the lower half only, so I still have this full coverage part. Okay, so just with a damp brush. Okay, it's not soaking wet. Try to lift off the paint. Okay, so this one lifts off fairly easily, so it's not staining. I can even like lift it off almost to the whiteness of the paper. Okay, so for the other parts, they're still quite wet, so I'm just gonna quickly use my blow dryer to just hasten the drying time of this one while covering the other parts, because I don't want the wet and wet to be affected. So if you have more time, then you don't have to use the blow dryer. Okay, now let's try to lift off here. And this one really lifts off very well. So it's also good to try this with different paper, because this is hot pressed, so this is smoother. So I would also try this with cold press to see how it behaves. Maybe if it's a different paper, it's going to be more staining, things like that. So if you have the patience, you can do it in at least these two kinds of paper, hot press, cold press, and see how they look like, so that you will also be able to study them depending on the paper that you would use as well. Okay, and for this one, manganese blue, I'll lift it off. And finally, for the ultramarine blue, okay, so with this paper, the manganese blue is a little bit staining, but not really. So I will also try this with cold press, so I can judge with hot press and cold press and see, depending on what paper I use, I can be forewarned. Okay, so these are the swatches we did today. So I will of course swatch all of the colors here, but for this session, I hope you learned how I do my swatching. And then you can of course make it your own way, change it up. You can make this bigger if you want to see more. If you like to paint wet on wet, for example, a lot, then you can even make this bigger and create more different variations to be able to judge it better. You can personalize it your own way. But this is the like the basic in-depth guide. So you need the space for all your information, the color, the brand, the pigments, all the transparency, lightfastness, your granulation, your staining, and then how it looks like with a full coverage, how it looks like in a graded wash, how it looks like wet and wet, and how you can color lift, how well is it staining, does it leave a really stained color, does it allow you to be able to lift off paint, things like that. So all of this you will right away see here. You can see how the paint behaves, and you can be able to judge it better whenever you need to use it. Okay, so I hope you learned something from me today, just really the basics. Okay, so I'm gonna pop this back to my face so I can say goodbye to you guys. Okay, all right, so thank you for staying with me, and here is the finished swatching, just one row. So you can do this for the whole paper. You can do this by palette. You can do this. I also recommend you do this for all your colors. So you have like a collection, and you can have a record of your collection. So all your information is here. Okay. So thank you for joining me, and have a good day. Bye.